Hello and welcome to the October 21st edition of the Cluster API provider AWS Office Hours, a sub-project of SIG Cluster Lifecycle and Cluster API. Just a reminder that we do abide by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, so in general be excellent to one another. And this meeting is recorded. If you have any topics that you want to discuss, please go ahead and add them to the agenda doc. I'm linking that in the chat now. To start with, we do have an announcement that both the 0.4.2 and 0.4.3 releases have been cut. They are mostly bug fix releases, but so go ahead and kick the tires on those and provide some feedback. I also did want to let people know that I have been working on the release 0.4 branch periodic and CI prow jobs. They've been created, and I'm working on trying to resolve some additional breakage that's there. And I'm also working on trying to get the state of the master jobs in a better state as well. So if anybody has any interest in helping out on that front, feel free to reach out to me on Slack. Otherwise, I hope to at least have the release 0.4 jobs in a better state within the next couple of days to provide better signal.
Jason, do you have GitHub issues for any of the specifics there?
I do not. I can go ahead and create them once we get done with this meeting.
Cool, thanks.
Mainly, I've just been looking at the output of the jobs and seeing, what's the current breakage for today.
Okay, yeah, I think filing the issues would be helpful because if you're busy, it doesn't have to be you who goes and triages them. So,
longer term, I think I would like to have it to where we actually send out failure notifications for those jobs, because right now it's a manual process that we have to remember to go and check test grid. But at the same time, I don't want to send those out to the SIG cluster lifecycle mailing list either. So I don't know if we should necessarily request like another subgroup just for sending out those failures to that people can register to, or if it would make more sense to just collect a handful of email for folks that want to be on the triage list to get those notifications for right now.
What's the process for getting those emails out? Is it just a PR to test infra?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to receive them. I think you're right that I don't think to go check test grid every day, so getting some sort of nag would be useful. And at the same time, I get annoyed when I have the kubeadm test grid failure emails, not CAB-PK, but just raw kubeadm. So yeah, let's not send them to the SIG.
Do you think it would make sense to go ahead and try to get a new Google group provisioned for sending those emails to, rather than just collecting various email addresses? It might be easier to manage it over time without having to continually PR test infra to update.
Yeah, my thought is I'm wondering if we want to have like one group per provider, or which means that we have a lot of groups, or do we want to bring this up on Wednesday with the broader Cluster API community and ask for the community's opinion? Should we have like one mailing or one Google group that's all Cluster API failures across all providers, or do they want independent? Because I just think like if we create a Kappa specific one, then we need a CAP V specific one and a CAP whatever specific one, which may just be too many.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. All right. Does anybody else have any other topics they would like to cover before we move on to the backlog grooming and triage? All right, over to you, Andy.
Okay, you can all see the issues, yes? All right.
Yeah.
So I have a few in here that we have seen before that I cleared the milestone off of because I figured they weren't really getting much love, and they were things that were worth talking again to see if we want to try and raise the priority or what to do with them. So the first one is tagging failures can result in orphaned resources. And we initially had said important soon. We also attempted to call it a good first issue, although I'm not sure about that. And then we punted it out of Alpha 1. It got stale. We removed it from being stale. And then almost 2 weeks ago, I said, let's go ahead and talk about this again because it was just sitting around in next. So this is the case where it's a two-step process to both create and tag a resource, and the worst case scenario where we create the resource and then Kappa crashes, right?
So I don't necessarily know if it requires Kappa crashing, because I hit this actually the other day and orphaned a internet
Oh,
gateway.
how did that happen?
I think it just hit the timeout for the tagging. So it kept trying to attempt to tag it with the backoff that we have defined, and it failed to. But then it went through during re-reconciliation and basically spun up a second internet gateway.
Okay. Do we have thoughts on actual code we can write to at least make this better than it is today?
So I bumped the AWS SDK version today, and it looks like there's configuration options for retry behavior. So we were on 1.20, it's now on 1.25, and there's been quite a lot of work done on retries, it looks like. So it might be we can use something that's already there now, and the behavior is better by default. So I think just needs some experimentation.
All right. Well, Nadir, you spoke up, so I'm tempted to assign you.
Yes.
All right. All right, so I'm going to say you bumped the AWS SDK, and there might be new features available for better retrying. We'll investigate. So we're going to assign this to Nadir. And in terms of a milestone, I think it's appropriate, or I would propose it's appropriate to do this for Alpha 3 or 0.5, whatever we're calling the thing. And as long as we can make some improvement, I would be willing to close this issue and then open up additional issues as they crop up, if that works for everybody. All right. So Jason, do you want me to unassign you?
Yeah, that'll be good probably.
I can type. Okay, cool. Next up is restrict IAM policy further to only allow deletion and possibly update of resources. And I think this one got stale, so I figured we should talk about it again. Is this, I gather, given that you created this back in February and nobody's really commented saying, please, 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 that this is probably not any sort of critical type of thing.
No, I don't think it's critical. I know in the past Nadir has done some work to tighten them up, and we did notice that there were some tangential issues, like the AWS cloud provider itself required overly broad permissions. I don't see anybody really clamoring for this now. But I think it's only a matter of time until we see higher adoption that it will be a more longer term requirement.
All right, so I'm tempted to put help wanted and just leave it in next, unless anybody feels differently.
That sounds right. This also seems like one that nobody's going to ask for, but if we had it, it would be nice. Sort of like nobody knows they want minimal scope.
Yeah, I think Jason's probably correct that as adoption increases, it's likely that we'll start to see Kappa used in environments where the security policies are more restrictive, and we'll find people starting to file issues or comment on an issue like this one that they want to use Kappa in their company or environment, and it works 80 to 90% of the way, but stuff is too broad, and so they need to scope some things down. Alrighty, next up is add documentation on how to create a control plane that spans multiple availability zones. And oh yeah, this one was part of the 0.3.x milestone for Alpha 2 or Alpha 1. And I wanted us to re-triage it because it was still sitting in that milestone. Didn't we have a pull request for this? Am I thinking of something else?
Not sure, but I have actually started writing that, so I'm just going to assign it and lifecycle active that. I didn't know that was already an issue.
All right, you'll take care of that, Nadir.
Yep.
All right, thanks. There is also this PR 1193 that I think maybe he was trying to, well, actually, I'm not sure what that is. So take a look at 1193 as part of your work on this one, if you would, please. Okay, allow specifying control plane load balancer subnets. And I think this one has a pull request against the Alpha 2 APIs. So given that I know Andrew has this PR open, I don't know if anybody's reviewed this yet, but we probably should just put this in the milestone and make sure that he retargets Alpha 3. And I don't see it as, I think, important soon for P1 and in the milestone. All right, next up is ALB ingress controller support. I am not well versed enough on AWS to know exactly what this is asking for. Do you want?
If I recall correctly, this was either IAM or firewall related changes.
We definitely have some RBAC and a service account. Oh, there's an actual ingress controller. What is your image? Okay, so Amazon has something for this. I mean, it seems like not knowing exactly what this is, it seems reasonable. I mean, I can make a guess as to what it does. So if we can find somebody willing to review it, I think saying important soon and in the milestone makes sense to me. Okay. Pulling images from a private registry doesn't seem to work. I believe that we chatted with Ashok about this, and he said that he was able to get this to work with a kind cluster and a non-kappa cluster using the exact same image pull secret. So it sounds like I don't know, there's either a problem with container D or something about how the secret's getting set up. So we probably need to get some instructions on exactly the steps that he used to reproduce this, and then we can triage it. So I'm going to put awaiting more evidence. I want to put it, so if it ends up being an actual issue, it needs to be in the milestone, and it probably would be something that we would backport to Alpha 2. So for right now, I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to ask for step-by-step instructions for how to reproduce. Okay, Alex is asking for additional printer columns. I think this was instance state was a specific ask. I'm just going to put help on this one. Probably it's good first issue too. And priority, I would say long term. And what do y'all think? Next or in the milestone or for 05?
I think in the milestone is fine. Since it's priority important long term, we could always bump it if we need to.
Okay, thanks. All right, this is a new one from overnight. Unable to generate examples with cert manager definitions, and I think Tassine had gone in and figured out what the problem was. So this one definitely needs to be in the milestone. This is using the generate script, which we do still have and support for generating examples. It's definitely not or it's unrelated or separate from the provider components. So I'm going to say soon and help on this one. And oh yeah, this was yours, Nadir, that is an actual bug, right?
Yeah, so it's a permutation on Andrew, mine's bug and pull request where you don't specify the subnets, but you still want an internal load balancer.
Okay. Important soon?
Think so.
Yeah, I was thinking we don't, like, this is definitely something that, let's see, when did this go in? Hold on, before I comment on that. This went in. Okay, so this is in 043. And basically, given that it's in 043, we would need to backport it, assuming we want to fix this for Alpha 2, which I think would be good. We don't have like a cherry pick candidate or backport candidate or anything. I think it might be worthwhile to think about a process for doing backports rather than, oh, I hope somebody remembers to backport it. But that does not have to be done right now. And this one was from the bump of the AWS SDK. This is really docs, right? Or do you want it to do feature?
Yeah, it's docs. Because right now, the way that we delegate or we tell users how to use assume role is through KIAM, and now with the bumped SDK, we can do Amazon's proof.
Nice.
I haven't even tried it yet, so to see if it actually works.
I mean, I didn't say it would work, but
All right, so all that's left is this one that you were going to take, Nadir. Okay, so this is the PRs, just all PRs that are open. So I figure we have plenty of time to go through them. We have a PR to add Amazon VPC CNI support. And I think we needed, yeah, forgot if this one changed the API. Let's see. Lots of YAML. So we need some more permissions. And okay, so it doesn't look like it's a API change.
So I
It's
think
just
there were some questions on this related to how we can choose which CNI solution,
right.
both from the IAM permission side where we're generating the CloudFormation template, but also at deployment time as well, as far as which security group permissions we're adding. I don't know that we've resolved those questions, and we might need to try to figure that out, or if we're okay with the solution as it sits today, where we just aggregate them all and go that route. We probably need to have a bigger discussion around that.
Okay. How, when, where should we have that discussion? Like, is it worth having either you or Nadir, since, or I know Nadir has some comments in here. Is it worth having somebody add some follow-up questions and review to this pull request, or do we need to have a discussion somewhere else?
We can probably handle it on the pull request. Trying to organize another type of discussion may be difficult considering the contributor.
Yeah.
You know, going across the Great Firewall of China and all that, and finding times that are convenient for all that are involved will be a little difficult.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense. So Jason or Nadir, do one of you want to volunteer to see this one through? Or
Yeah,
an
I
email?
can do it.
All right, let me.
I wasn't waiting. I just struggled to unmute.
Well, I'll add Jason as an assignee, and between the two of you, hopefully we can get this moving forward. So next up, we have a PR work in progress to add ingress CIDR config for the ELB, which is probably a good thing. And this was just a type change, right? Or adding the types, but not the implementation. Oh, we do have some implementation. Okay. So sorry, I forgot. This is on Alpha 2. So I will come back in and let's see. Could you please rework the changes to be against the new V1 Alpha 3 API version? All right, so we'll see if that one can get some TLC. We briefly talked about the multi-AZ thing. Nadir's going to look into that. We have a machine controller test from Liz that, Vince, it looks like you looked at this. Are you waiting for somebody else to LGTM it? You would approve it.
Yeah. I think this is good to go.
All right. Feel free to LGTM it.
Okay.
Hey, Liz.
I'm here.
Alrighty. We talked about this one, or at least looked at it briefly. This one needs to go against Alpha 3. Let's see. Alrighty, then we have So this one addresses a request to be able to launch EC2 instances without specifying any SSH key pair. And so he changed the SSH key name to an optional or a pointer in AWS cluster and AWS machine. So I think we need to get this also updated against Alpha 3. Then we have the ALB that we talked about. All right, we have a validation webhook pull request for AWS machine. I think somebody just needs to review this. I'm happy to take it unless somebody else really wants to. All right, I will add that to my review list, and this needs to be in milestone. And we have the fix from Aaron for the cluster AWS ADM version command. I did test this out myself earlier today, and it was working, which looked good. So go ahead and approve this. And that is all of the open issues and pull requests. So I'll stop sharing. And back to you, Jason.
All right. Any other topics before we call it a day? All right. In that case, thank you all very much.